Hey, this is Pastor Curry, pastor of the Zion Fair Baptist Church, Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that love ya and anything you can do about it. Today we are continuing on in this whole blood donor awareness month. It has been a wonderful, 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 wonderful month. We've had an opportunity to have a spiritual spin on it. We had an opportunity to have our blood drive, and we also had an opportunity to share some reasons for why you must donate blood. Today, we brought in Tom Prado, who will certainly serve as a person who will give us some good information, and he's from the blood bank of Delmarva, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with him. Why don't you grab somebody, call them, tell them Coffee with Curry is on, and let's get after it. And it is a joy to have Tony Prado with us today. I am just excited over this whole month. We've been able to do some wonderful things to help heighten the awareness of donating blood. All too often, especially in the African American community, we don't see the true relevance of doing such. But Zion Fair has really gone all out this year to try to make sure that we remind us that we have to be able to give to those who cannot not always give back to us. And during these winter months, a lot of times people are not giving their blood, but it's needed the most during this time. So today I'm just honored to have with us a representative from the blood bank of Delmarva, Tony, who will certainly spend a couple of minutes just chatting with me. But before we get into the blood bank of Delmarva, just tell me a little bit about Tony.
So my name is Tony Prado, and I'm a local journalist, born and raised in the city of Wilmington.
Oh.
Living in Glasgow now, the suburbs. So I was a journalist for 13 years before I made the transition to communications.
Okay.
It was a natural transition, and I got my start in this field in actually Newcastle County government,
Okay.
where we had a lot of fun with a little channel called Channel 29,
Oh.
the government access channel. And it's funny because when I joined Newcastle County government, one of the great things Human Resources did was recruit me to become a member of the blood bank of Delmarva, and I give them all the credit in the world. In addition to my father, who was a blood donor, and I used to ask him, like, hey, what'd you do today? He's like, I gave blood. And I'm like, why'd you do that? And he's like, well, it's a good thing to do, son. So I never forgot that. But Newcastle County was the one that finally got me to sign up, and it's a good thing because I spent 4 years there.
Okay.
And when that time came to an end, it was time to find a new job. And so when the blood bank of Delmarva's communications specialist position opened up, I applied, and I felt like I didn't have to fake it because I was already a member,
Right.
donating my blood as as a volunteer blood donor, and I felt really good about it, and I think they did as well. So here I am, 4.5 years later.
Yeah, and do you find it to be refreshing to see that the donors are giving, or do you find that there's a strong decline in giving of blood?
Overall, there has been a decline, I have to say. The pandemic has proved to be both challenging and resilient.
Okay.
It's lingered on much longer than we thought, with the latest iteration being Omicron, right? So that set us back in terms of people understandably being cautious. I always have to remember not everybody thinks of the pandemic the same way.
Right.
And, people who had given before, just to put it in perspective, we have about 34,000 unique donors, and when you look at the number of times people come in every year, it averages out to about 75,000, 80,000 people coming in to donate a year. And a lot of those are repeat donors, obviously. We lost 5,000 donors.
Oh, wow.
As a result of the pandemic, and we are still working hard to get them to come back. We also saw a 57% drop in blood drives.
Okay.
So we were talking about my colleague Deso Bryant. He hustles to get in churches, businesses, nonprofits, schools. Schools are a big one. Colleges and high schools. When you take those blood drives away that make it convenient for people to donate, whether it's in a facility like this or elsewhere, through all, in all these pockets of Delmarva, that includes the entire state of Delaware, the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and also the Eastern Shore of Virginia. That takes away a convenient way for people to give. And so it has definitely hurt us, and we are now in the wintertime, and specifically January is National Blood Donor Month because our colleagues at the American Red Cross and at the national level recognized that we needed to collectively raise awareness of the need for blood. Because if you look at what happened at the turn of the new year, that was a perfect example of what we're up against. People, got busy during the holidays.
Right.
We all got to get our Christmas shopping done, make sure Santa Claus is prepared, and all that good stuff. And we also had a couple snowstorms hit. Sometimes that doesn't happen until the end of January, but it started right at the beginning of the month. That closed operations early, and people, from an individual perspective, here in Delaware, if there's an inch or two of snow on the ground, people are going to cancel their appointments, and that's just a fact of life. And then on top of that, this recent wave with the pandemic really set us back. Now, that's not to say that there haven't been glimmers of hope. We just enjoyed a 3-day blood drive in Ocean City, Maryland, for instance, where we had the second highest number of donors come out in the history of that blood drive, which goes back 23 years. We had 670 people show up. That amounted to 670 units of blood. And if you think about
what was the span of time for that?
It was Tuesday through Thursday.
Okay, that's real good.
And it was all day, like eight hours a day.
Okay.
In the Ocean City Convention Center, and it was great. People. If you think about the fact that we need 350 people a day to donate blood, 6 days a week, they stepped up and did their part. Now, look, if you have a blood drive, if you can get 35 people at least to sign up, 30 to 35 people, we consider that a phenomenal success. Right. But during December, we had a blood drive that brought out, it was about 15 donors. Now, that's a small blood drive, but that was 15 donors we didn't have when we started today. And, we're in a business where beggars can't be choosers. And so when people come in, we love it. And look, I get it. Not everybody wants to roll up their sleeve and have a needle go in their arm. Right. It's not the most pleasant thing, but it is such a, fraction of a second of discomfort for something great for your community.
I was so impressed with when we had ours here. First, the professionalism of the staff.
Yeah.
I am afraid of needles. I got to be honest. I will open confession. The Bible says it's good for the soul. And I did not want to be seen as not having courage. When I have to get blood work done for my annual physicals and stuff, I always ask for the best person who can prick and things of that nature. But the level of professionalism that the team had was unbelievable. The question was asked to me, how do you feel about, needles? Out of nowhere, I'm like, wow, you read my mind. And I told the person, I said, one, I have moving veins, so whoever it is, could it be the best prick, the person who could prick the best? Yeah. She said, no problem, I'll take care of you. And then we went on, and and I liked the way that they had to test to make sure that I was eligible, certain questionnaires. And people just don't understand. When she stuck me, I didn't know. She started talking about something I was interested in talking about. And then when she stuck me and I started seeing, she had the bag down and I happened to turn her over and see my blood going out. I was like, oh, that's when I started feeling like, oh my God, she's taking some of my blood. But I'm just saying the professionalism, the painless process is something that I think people need to know, as opposed to thinking this is this horrible experience. Your people were very, very professional.
Well, thank you for that. And I have to say, our phlebotomists they're definitely the hardest working people in the organization. Yeah. And not only, they're on their feet all day, but you also touched on something very important, and that's the customer service. Mm-hmm. And you had, our phlebotomists, I'm a little biased, they're the best in the state, mm-hmm. But they've got great customer service. And so what she was doing with you was talking to you, asking you basic questions, and how's your day going?
Yeah.
And she asked you, how you felt about needles, and they're doing that to gauge your mood, and they want to see how you're feeling because they understand that a lot of people are going to be nervous about giving blood. So she anticipated very well your unique situation, which I'm assuming was your first time donating blood.
No, it's not. In actuality, it's not. My fraternity does blood drives, and I try to keep up with it. But
that's good.
This is the first time in 3-4 years, I think, put it that way.
So then you were what we call a lapsed donor.
Okay.
And welcome back.
Yeah.
So that's just great professionalism because you felt at ease, and you mentioned something that I always find remarkable when they have done all their prep work and the iodine scrub to make sure everything is sterile. When the needle goes in and you can't feel it, that to me is amazing. I mean, talk about hitting the mark. And you mentioned something about courage, and it reminds me of one of my favorite lines. It's from a movie called The Black Knight with Martin Lawrence, and he's got a great line toward the end of the movie, and he says, "Courage is not the absence of fear; it is the presence of fear, yet the will to go on." And it's a beautiful line that applies to all of life, right? And you took that leap. I appreciate it. And someone in the hospital who needed blood, whether they were suffering from cancer, anemia, or a bad car accident, they're going to thank you. Maybe one day you'll get to meet them. We're doing this new program, speaking of which, where we'll send you an email and we'll let you know what hospital your blood went to. And I've spoken to some donors who they get a kick out of it, in particular when they find out it went to Nemours Children's Hospital, for instance, which we all know was A. DuPont, right? They changed their name to Nemours. So I mean, and that's what it's all about. It's about talking people into giving blood so that you can help your community, you can help your fellow man. And we're only asking for a pint. We're not asking for all your blood.
Although one of my deacons, I don't know what he was doing. He gave a whole lot of blood because I think he even gave plasma, I guess you would call it as well.
Yes, that's right. We have basically four different types of donations. Your regular old-fashioned donation is whole blood. That's where we're going to take a pint of blood, and then we'll take that back to the lab and we'll separate it into its parts, plasma, platelets, and red blood cells. And then we have a procedure called double red cells, and that is when you're hooked up to a machine that will take your blood and separate the plasma from the red blood cells. And we'll take twice as many red blood cells as usual and give you back your plasma. We'll also give you some saline solution to make up for the loss of volume in your body. The other thing we do, as you said, is plasma, and that's just the opposite of the double red cell procedure. We're separating it same exact way, only this time we're keeping your plasma and we're giving you your red blood cells back. And that's really great for your blood types such as AB positive and AB negative. Those are in demand for plasma, whereas if you're O positive or O negative or type A or B, we're going to want your red blood cells. And that's basically how it works out. Last but not least is the platelet procedure. That's the most challenging for two reasons. It takes an hour and a half to 2 hours of your time. That's why you often see retirees or people, maybe they're entrepreneurs with their own business, they have the time in their schedule to do it. And platelets are important because those are the tiny little cells that are responsible for clotting. So if you cut your finger or something more serious, they're the ones that rush to the site and stop the bleeding. And we have patients who need platelets. And the second reason they're challenging is because you can't refrigerate them the way you do red blood cells, and plasma will freeze that. And the minute you refrigerate platelets, you kill their clotting factor. So they only last for 5 days. So that's the other thing that's challenging about platelets. But all the products are needed, and somehow, getting 350 people to do that a day is quite challenging.
Right. But I will, and we're going to go to a break, but one of the things that I wanted to make sure I also share, and I told the young lady, I cannot remember her name, who was serving me, she asked me, this is how I got engulfed in her conversation. She said, "So you're the pastor?" I said, "Yes." She said, "What was the sermon today?" And I told her what the sermon was, and she began to engage me on the sermon. And that's why it just took my whole mindset off of what, and I, in my head, I said, she was looking for something to have that conversation where she could keep my mind, because she knew I was very antsy about that, and to make sure that I would flow free. So the front part of this, I want to say hats off to the professional staff that you all have, because it was just unbelievable, and how courteous they were and understanding, and it was just wonderful. And for those of you who are watching us, if you have not donated blood, and every person, and we're going to talk about it when we come back, people who can't donate, and we understand that too, but if you can and you're eligible to donate, you really should donate, because at the end of the day, somebody's life is dependent upon that, and there are some who lose their life because of the lack thereof of blood being available. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about just some of the people who may not be eligible to be able to give blood, and we'll talk about that. We'll be right back.
Donating blood. It's the thing cool people do these days. So it's good to know that there are many ways to save lives. The most common is a whole blood donation. That's the one a lot of people do on our buses. It's also your initiation into the Lifesavers Club. All donors start here. Whole blood contains red cells, platelets, and plasma, all important things that keep us alive. With the help of advanced technology at our centers, you can donate any one of those components at a time. And each one plays a different role in saving someone's life. Feeling powerful yet? Oh, just you wait. Platelets are small cell fragments in blood that help stop or prevent bleeding. Platelet donations are used to help cancer patients, organ transplants, burn victims, and patients who are suffering from bleeding disorders. The liquid portion of your blood is called plasma. Plasma helps your body stay healthy. Plasma donations are used for liver issues, infections, burns, and also helps with clotting. Red cells transport oxygen throughout the body. Besides trauma and surgery, automated red cell donations can be used to treat anemia, blood loss, and blood disorders. You already have everything you need to save a life. So grab your cape, superhero, and get out there and donate. Because no matter what, your donation is helping someone in your community. And you're welcome for all those facts that may help during trivia night. The Blood Connection, your community blood center.
And we're back. Well, it has been a very wonderful and informative conversation that we've had thus far. And Tom, I'm really enjoying this. We talked about the professionalism of the staff. We talked about the giving of blood. But I wanted to turn just a little bit and talk about those who are and are not eligible to give blood.
Yeah, it's a great question, Pastor. So when you look at the population as a whole here in the U.S., about 35% or so of the people are actually eligible to give blood. And that's a fraction of the population. And there's a number of reasons for that. If you, for instance, are taking certain medications, like there's certain blood pressure medications that preclude you from donating blood, so you're ineligible. Certain blood thinners, not all of them. You'd be surprised how many, let me emphasize, how many medications you can take and still give blood. If you are battling cancer, you're going to be ineligible to give blood, obviously. We want you to get better. In fact, cancer patients are very often people who we serve. They need red blood cells and they need platelets. Those are the two things they need the most. So that's another factor. And just to break it down for you real quick, most cancers, once you've been cured and are cancer-free for 1 year, you can come back and see us and donate blood. That's a common misconception. The one area that is a longer deferral is cancers of the blood, leukemia, lymphoma. We're going to put you on the bench, so to speak, for 5 years. And that's understandable because, you're talking about the blood itself. And those people are a great example of folks that we need to make sure that the red blood cell supply and the platelet supply are in, adequate amounts for those folks. Because when you're suffering from cancer, chemotherapy is a tough thing. That often kills your red blood cells and your platelets. But if you have cancer of the blood, we need to replace essentially the blood flowing through your veins so you can get those oxygen carrying red blood cells and those life-saving platelets back into your body. So there's a number of illnesses. HIV is one of the things that we test for. So if you're HIV positive, you are not eligible to give blood. One of the other things that precludes people from donating blood, I know that this is a source of contention in the gay community, but men, gay men who are sexually active are deferred from giving blood. And there's the FDA actually changed that from a permanent ban to 12 months, and then they went to 3 months, and that's where we are currently.
And when you say 12 months, 3 months, you mean if they're active, they have to not be active for 12 or 3 months, or do they could be active, but they, I just want my audience to understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you're a member of the gay community, you would have to be not sexually active for at least 3 months in order to get blood.
Right. That's what
so
I wanted to
you understood that question correctly. So I mean, there's various things that preclude people from donating blood, but one of the things that does not preclude you from donating blood is age. There used to be a maximum of 79 years old to give blood. And that was in place when I first started at the blood bank 4.5 years ago. But they found, Pastor, that a lot of people were getting exemptions from the medical director, and we finally got smart and said, why are we creating extra work for ourselves? There are people in their 80s, 90s that are perfectly healthy and willing to give blood. So they did away with the age limit. Now, on the other end, there is a minimum age that, so if you're 16 or younger here in Delmarva, you cannot give blood. So those folks are not eligible to give blood. But here's the good news. When you turn 17 and you're a junior or senior in high school, and we come to your school, you can give blood.
Now, can I just ask you that question? Because, again, I'm always thinking about my viewers. If I am 16, 15, 12, you're saying I can't. Is it because the reproduction of my blood is different? Or why?
So the easy answer to that question is that's the FDA regulation that we have to follow. The feds have determined that 17 is the minimum age that it is safe to give blood. But I suspect it has a lot to do with what you're talking about, the development of our young folks. They're still growing into their bodies and whatnot. And 17 has been determined to be the age that is safe for you to give blood. And if you think about it, like 17, 18, I mean, that's basically when you're, about done growing. So, and look, it's great. Like a lot of these kids, they'll donate to get out of class, but they go through the process, and the more they learn about it and understand that they really did something profound to help people, they tend to come back. Whether it's when we come back to the school for a blood drive, or they'll come into the donor center and see us, and it's great to see. And again, we're not seeing that as much because of the pandemic, unfortunately, and so it just makes us work harder to raise awareness, and that's why we're here. And hopefully, people will make that decision. I say this all the time. There's people walking around that are perfectly healthy, and they've never given blood before. They just never thought about it, or maybe nobody ever asked them. Well, we're asking you now. Because that 35% of the population that's eligible to give blood, when you look at who actually comes out to blood drives, or to the donor center, you're talking about less than 10%, sometimes less than 5% of that group coming out to donate. And so if we could increase that number, if everybody who was eligible actually donated blood just twice a year, they tell me that we wouldn't have these blood shortages that are so common and endemic these days. But that's the situation we're in. So I don't know. Maybe someday we'll get there.
And we will. I'm optimistic, so I believe we will. And I'm glad that you and others are bringing high attention to it. because it is very much needed. I happen to know of a person who would have died had blood not been available to them.
Wow.
And do you know, and this is off the cuff question, the percentage of African Americans, European Americans, like what percentage who donate?
That is a great question. I love that question. And it is something that we're very cognizant of.
Okay.
I've looked at the numbers the last couple of years with great interest. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here, which is, I mean, this is a historically African-American church.
Yeah.
And when you look at the population, according to the census of the state of Delaware, for instance, you know, you're talking about a population that's about 60-65%, you know, white Americans, and then it's 23% African American. And I believe the Hispanic population is somewhere around 7-8%. And then you can fill in the, you know, whatever's left of that 100% total population. And, you know, you're talking about nationally, it's similar. I think that, you know, 13% of the population is African American in America. And that figure actually held in the 2020 census compared to 2010. And, you know, the population as a whole is pretty reflective of Delaware. Delaware is kind of like one of those states that is pretty much in line with the rest of the nation. Okay. So if you look at donors coming into the blood bank of Delmarva, how do those figures compare? The last couple of years, the number of African American donors has been around 4.7% to 6.5%. So we have room for improvement there. Right, and look, I see you know, folks coming in to donate, and we have some diversity. It's just not reflective of the community here locally, and like I said, it's room for improvement. Right. And one of the things we're doing right now is we're working with a gentleman named Bill Garrett. He's from oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up his fraternity. But he's a member of a service organization, a fraternity that's you know, historically black, and yes, that's it. Thank you very much.
You know what? I know him, and I am a part of that same
Okay,
fraternity.
there you go. Thank you so much. You guys came in last June, and en masse, and it was great. We took pictures, or they sent us pictures, and we put it on our social media. And for this. The next newsletter we're doing for the blood bank, I want to do a story about Omega Psi-Phi's, you know, wonderful efforts to, you know, just give back to the community in such a powerful way. I mean, you know, you want to talk about, you know, service fraternity. I mean, they're walking the walk. You guys are walking the walk, and kudos to you. And I also want to mention a young lady named Jacqueline Means. She calls herself the STEM Queen. She's a pre-med student at University of Delaware, and she's Miss Talented. Black Teen USA for the state of Delaware. And, you know, STEM is a passion of hers, and because of that, she gravitated towards blood banking, which is very scientific in nature. You know, we've got the folks in the white lab coats in the back, processing your blood, testing it for infectious diseases and all that good stuff. And we're so grateful to Jackie that she chose us to you know, as part of her platform. And I have to say, in late September, it was the last Saturday in September, she celebrated her 19th birthday with us. And you saw more diversity in the blood donors because of the, you know, the group, the sizable group she brought with her that day to the Christiana Donor Center.
There's and just for the sake of sharing some more information with you, there is a national mandate for Omega Psi-Phi fraternity that we host a blood drive in all of our chapters, and we have about 7,000 chapters across this country, internationally.
Wow.
Let me also share that Charles Drew, who was the one who perfected the blood plasma, is a member, well, he's gone on now, but was a member of Omega Psi-Phi. So it is a quest of ours to do that. And as a pastor, when we looked at what month this was, it just fell in line, because I know traditionally in the African American church, as well as in our community, we don't do the blood drives, but we need to, because oftentimes, and my data may be wrong, But oftentimes the biggest recipients, especially with some of the violence and things that's going on in and around cities, are African Americans, and we do need that blood. So I just wanted to add that in to say that your work and what y'all are doing is excellent. There is a mandate in some organizations that it has to happen. And it's funny because we have not been in convention for about 3 years now because of and that's one of the reasons why I have not donated because I just have not done it. But I didn't mean to cut you off. But the whole notion of you're going out, you're getting people, even those who are part of the minority community, to try to help with this. And if I could just say this to those of you who are watching, it's critical that you be a part of the community that you live in. All too often, things that we don't see as significant, it is very significant. The life you save may be the life you love. And that was said to me years ago. And when I share with you that had blood not been available for the one person I was speaking of, it was because of somebody I know personally donating blood to that person. It was the right type and things of that nature. And they were able to save the life. So I take this serious. I take this serious. I take your work serious. Because what you do, people may look upon it as oh, well, he's just want to get blood. It is very critical.
It is, Pastor. And thank you for mentioning Dr. Drew. He is recognized as the father of blood banking here in the United States of America. He perfected the technique of storing blood during wartime, and he was very instrumental in the business that we're, very much a part of today. Like, it's we have 19 hospitals that we have to fill, blood orders for, and that is not an easy thing to do. So we appreciate you having us here to raise awareness during National Blood Donor Month. Because, I mean, like I said, the notion of opening up your vein with to give blood, I mean, it's not usually the first thing on people's minds. But like you said, it can be life altering, it can be life saving. Just to put things in perspective, here we are in Wilmington. We're part of the I-95 corridor. And every now and then, we have some bad accidents that occur on the turnpike. People going too fast. Everybody's in a hurry, ain't going nowhere, my dad used to say. And if someone is in a situation like that and they need blood, it is our job to make sure that Christiana Hospital or whatever hospital you're taken to has the blood they need to save your life. It's very simple. It's a very simple concept. There were some scientists a lot smarter than me in the early 20th century who figured out that if someone is bleeding to death, what if the blood of others can help that person? And there was some trial and error there. One of them was one of the topics that you mentioned you wanted to talk about, which was blood types. They had to figure out the hard way, unfortunately, that there are different blood types. Some are compatible with others and some are not. Right. But when you break it down, there are 8 major blood types. Yeah,
and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our next commercial, and then we're going to talk about that because that's important too. And there are some blood types that are more rare than others. And that's why it's important that we all donate and know our blood types so that we'll be able to make sure that we are helping in every way we can. This has been a very good conversation. We'll be right back.
Many Americans are eligible to donate blood, but only 3% of them actually do. Many believe they're ineligible to donate to the American Red Cross simply because of myths surrounding blood donation requirements. For example, one myth is that tattoos mean you can't donate. At most, you may have a deferral period. But in most states, you may be able to give blood right after getting ink, as long as the tattoo was applied by a state-regulated entity using sterile needles and ink that's not reused. Maybe you've traveled overseas recently on your honeymoon or that dream vacation. Talk to an eligibility specialist because you may still be able to donate. There's a whole bunch of other myths out there too. You're not 18, so you can't donate yet, right? Actually, in most states, if you're at least 16, you can donate with parental permission. You can work out before your donation, but not after. You'll want to rest. Got a tetanus shot yesterday, but feel fine? Go ahead and donate. Other myths revolve around your medical history. Currently taking antidepressants, birth control, diabetes medication, broken an arm in the last year? As long as you're feeling well, you can donate. The Red Cross always needs volunteer donors to help patients survive and thrive. Your one donation could help save more than one life. Find out more at redcrossblood.org today.
And we're back. Well, it's been great. It's been great. We've talked about the donations. We talked about the professionalism of the blood bank of Delmarva. We've had an opportunity to share, organizations that are aligning with them in order to help get more blood donations. Grateful that there are some African American groups that are working with them as well. But I just want to turn our attention just a little bit to blood types. My data may be wrong, but about 90% of people who walk around don't even know their blood type. And it may be even higher than that, or maybe less, I don't know. But if you could just tell us how many blood types there are, what does that mean, that will help us out a lot.
Yeah, it's a great question, Pastor. I don't think you're off with your numbers either, because I'll use myself as an example. I talked about joining the blood bank during my time at Newcastle County. I didn't know my blood type.
Okay.
And if you recall your doctor's office and talk to the nurse, good luck trying to find out your blood type. Because if you're like me and you made that call, you found out that they didn't know. And guess what is the best way to find out your blood type?
By giving blood.
Exactly. Correct.
And the lady said that she was going to send an email and tell me. Okay.
Yeah, and I can follow up as well. I can find that out easily for you. So I agree with you. Your blood type is something that you should know. It's like your driver's license. You should that should be something that you have in your wallet. And if you're a member of the Blood Bank of Delmarva, you have a member card that has your blood type on there. So you'll probably be getting that in the mail any day now. So when you look at the different types of blood types, there are 8 major blood types. Okay. We start with the ABO types, and that simply refers to the fact whether you have the A antigen, your type A, the B antigen, your type B, or you have both antigens, in which makes you AB. And then you have your
before you go to the next one, make sure that that's on there. You don't have to have all the language, but at least the AB, so that we'll make sure that we're letting them follow you. Yeah, Professor.
No, it's a great point. And so then, last but not least, you have the O blood type. The O is synonymous with 0, and that means you have neither the A or the B antigen. So they make for the most interesting blood types, in my opinion. Now, that takes care of the 4-letter blood types. But then you have, on top of that, your RH factor. You're either RH negative or you're RH positive. And it's simply a protein that either exists in your blood or not. And that is where we get whether you're O positive or O negative, A positive or A negative, and so on and so forth. So that's how we get to the 8 major blood types. Now, the folks in the white lab coats, they can drill down and get even further to subgroups of blood types, and those become important for special patients, whether it's at the Children's Hospital in the Moors or other places where they need something more than your regular run-of-the-mill blood type. So that's how it plays out. Now, why is that important? Because we know now, thanks to a couple hundred years of science, that you have to make sure that you're giving blood to a person that is compatible with their blood type. So let's start with AB positive. If you're AB positive, that means you're a lucky person. You can get any blood type transfused to your body, and you're going to be okay. Okay. And they're called the universal recipient. On the other end of the spectrum is O negative. O negative is what we call the universal donor because their blood can go to anybody. And that becomes critical in a trauma and emergency unit where if you're brought in an ambulance and they don't know your blood type and they need to give you some blood in an emergency, they can give you O negative. And that's where the O negative folks shine. The bad news for them is they can only get O negative. So we talk a lot about the need for O negative for emergency rooms and trauma centers. But we also have to remember that we need people to donate O negative blood so that O negative folks can get that blood.
So they can give it to anyone,
yes,
but they cannot receive.
They can only receive O negative.
Only receive O negative. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I know.
So now, when I gave blood, I found out that my blood type was B negative. Okay. So that's the second most rare blood type. And you mentioned that some folks are more rare than others, and that's one of those blood types where it's part of our core 4 blood types. O positive, O negative, B negative, and A negative are the 4 blood types most in demand by hospitals, just because of their versatility and the need for those blood types. If you want to talk about the Fab 5, the 5th blood type on that list would be A positive, and the reason why is O positive is the most common blood type in America. A positive is neck and neck. They're number 2. So I got a question for you, Pastor. Which blood type do you think is most in demand by the hospitals?
Most in demand?
Most in demand.
Probably B.
So B positive is your 3rd most common blood type in America, and yes, we do need it. But O positive.
Oh.
O positive. And it's for 2 reasons. It is the number 1 blood type in America. You're talking about 35% of the population. And it also has versatility. O positive can go to obviously other O positive donors. It can also go to A positive.
Right.
It can go to B positive. It can go to AB positive. And one more I'll mention. In an emergency one-time situation only, you can give O positive, like if the person's O negative and there was no O negative on the shelf, you could give them O positive once. You can never do it again after that.
Okay.
But it's so O positive ends up being the most in demand by far. Okay. And so when often you hear us make a plea for blood, O positive and O negative are the 2 that we're asking for the most, followed by B negative and A negative. And I want to say something in addition to that. We talked about trying to raise awareness and increase the number of our African American donors. When you look at that population, well over 50% of that subgroup is O positive, O negative. So you're talking about a vast potential there in terms of people who can really give back to the community in a powerful way if we could just get those numbers up. And it's part of my job in marketing to raise awareness about the need for blood. And I would just say, as you were saying earlier, it's a powerful way to give back to your community. If you're like me and you don't have time to coach Little League or volunteer in the community center handing out turkeys or whatever, I can say that I give blood, and that's how I give back to the community. It's something that, despite all of our technological advances, it only comes from the human body.
Right. If there was a question, while you were speaking, I thought of something. If I'm rushed into the emergency room,
yes,
and I do not know what my blood type is, how do they determine what my blood type is? Do they take blood right away and test it, or what do they do?
Yeah, so in a dire situation where there is no time, they're gonna, as I said before, they're gonna give you O negative blood.
Okay, all right.
Because that is the universal donor. Because if you think about it, they have 0 antigens and they have 0 Rh factor. So those are the things that are going to cause reactions in someone that's incompatible with your blood type. So like if somebody is A positive and they give blood to me and I'm B negative, I'm going to react negatively to the A and also the positive. Whereas if it's O negative or B negative, it's not going to be a problem for me. Now the hospital can, at some point, once they've stabilized you in the trauma center, they will take blood and they will find out what your blood type is, because the hospital, at some point they want to find out what your blood type is, because even though O negative is great for an emergency, if you're O positive, it's the best thing to do is give you O positive. If you're A positive, the best thing to do is give you A positive. Mm-hmm. Because even though we have figured out that certain blood types are compatible with others, the closer you can get to someone's blood type, the better off. And believe it or not, my colleague Kristen Frederick, she's the director of laboratories. She's one of the folks in the white lab coat. She talks about the need for more diversity in the blood supply, because when you look at some of the kids suffering from sickle cell anemia, they need red blood cells regularly. It turns out that if you can match that donor's ethnicity with the donor, to that patient, I should say, it cuts down on reactions, because it's not perfect. It's not a perfect science. Like there can be reactions when someone receives a transfusion, but when you make sure that the blood supply essentially reflects the community, it's just better for everybody involved.
Right. I also had a question regarding, normally when they say that there's a blood transfusion, how much blood is a transfusion? Is it a pint, a gallon, or all of your blood?
Yeah, so when you donate blood, that is a pint.
Right, okay.
And you'll see that bag fill up, and it looks like it's about to burst. They make sure that it's full. And the reason why is because if I don't know if you noticed, but when you gave blood, there was also 2 bags behind the one you filled up.
Yeah.
And that's because they take that to the lab and they separate it out into its component parts. Your plasma, your red blood cells, your platelets. We're going to filter out actually the white blood cells, because we actually don't want that going into somebody when they receive a transfusion. So 1 unit of red blood cells is actually less than a pint, because 55% of your blood is plasma.
That's what,
that is the straw-colored liquid in which your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and your platelets float. That's the base of your blood. So you've already taken 55% away. And then we take those red blood cells and we're going to put it in it's like a saline solution, so that the red blood cells have something to float in. So it's less than a pint that you get. So 1 unit is less than a pint. Now, often people get 2 units or 3, depending on how anemic they are or how much blood they've lost, because of it could be a routine surgery or it could be an emergency. But I'll tell you about Amanda. Was a young lady who in February 2018, it was wintertime, she and her husband were expecting their first child. She gave birth and there were complications with a C-section. We gave her 9 liters of blood. That's not units. Liters.
Right.
So we were replacing her blood supply several times over. And, her husband joked that she was bleeding it out as soon as we put it in her. But you know what? That kept her alive.
Yeah.
So the best way to answer your question is it can be as small as 1 unit, or in her case, I don't even know how many units 9 liters is, to be honest with you, but it's a lot. And so whatever it takes. And that, it never ceases to amaze me that, here in the 21st century, and we've been doing this for a number of years, that we can, it's such a simple concept, you're losing blood, but we can replace it because of the generosity of people that donated blood and made sure the hospital had it, for people like Amanda, or other people that we talked about, whether they're battling cancer, various forms of anemia. And we're grateful for the donors we have to make that possible.
Yeah, and I'm grateful too, along with you all. The work you all do is just to be commended.
Thank you.
Oftentimes it's underscored, underfunded, and those things needs to be looked at beyond just you all. But I looked at this month and I said we needed to do something to bring awareness to the giving of blood. I know earlier in the show I had shared that, you know, in the city of Wilmington we have really faced a crises of murders and violence, period. And I see the level of blood that is even being given in those circumstances. Often when we talk about giving blood, we talk about like the lady who was having a baby and she had some complications. But in all circumstances where people are losing blood and need blood, we want to make sure that it's available to them. And my appeal to those who are a part of the African American community, Latino, Black and Brown community, is that we do need to start giving to those who can't give back to us. They told me within 6 weeks, all the blood I gave, I'll have it back. And I didn't miss it because I enjoyed the snacks y'all gave.
That's the best part.
Man, it was wonderful I just loved the way she treated me, and it wasn't because I was the pastor, because every person, and we consider ourselves to have had a successful. We had 40 people to sign up for our first blood drive. And after it was all over, they said you go over and have a snack or 2 or 3 or 4, because I kept saying I got to replenish, so I just kept eating all the sweet stuff and a little sugar, a little salt too. Yeah. But it was well put together, professional, sanitized well. The people were polite. I just encourage, if you can look at a person like me who is totally petrified of needles, whose veins move as you're trying to grab them, I say to you, you should just try it. The next blood bank, next blood drive you hear of, just try it and donate if you are eligible to donate. And let's help save the life of someone else. Tom, it has been more than a joy having you with me today. I've had many people on the show. You have given us more information than I had even anticipated. I thought we were just going to talk about the snacks that you all provide afterwards. Yeah. But it was really a great experience, and we will sign up next year. Well, we may even do it in the summer, because the gentleman, Mr. Dion Clifton, who is our community development person, he says that he thinks we should do another one, and I'm open to that. So whenever the next one is, we will make sure we announce it. We'll try to get as many donors as possible, but I want you to have an opportunity to share the website, phone number, where people can go and look where there are different where they can go get blood. So if you don't mind just sharing that with the camera, I would truly appreciate it.
Yeah, so there's a number of things you can do. First of all, you can go to delmarvablood.org. Okay. delmarvablood.org, and there you can do a couple things. You can sign up to make an appointment to give blood. You can also make a financial contribution. A lot of our friends who are no longer eligible to give blood like to stay engaged with us by giving a financial contribution, which helps because the Blood Bank of Delmarva is a nonprofit organization. The third thing you can do is volunteer your time. When you're having your juice and cookies in the canteen, very often that's a volunteer who is not only getting your refreshments, but they're watching you to make sure that you're okay during that 15-minute period after giving blood. The other way to make an appointment or to reach out to one of our account managers if you want to host a blood drive is to call toll-free 1-888-8-BLOOD-8. That's 1-888-8-BLOOD-8. The word blood, BLOOD. We do that to make it easy for you to remember the phone number. So if you're old-fashioned like me and you have a rotary phone in your basement, you can call that to make an appointment to give blood, or ask about other ways to get involved, including financial donations and volunteering your time. So those are the 3 ways that you can get involved. But it's wintertime, as the pastor said. It's National Blood Donor Month, and we're trying to raise awareness. And the big thing we need right now is for people to donate red blood cells or their platelets. And so hopefully they'll come out, Pastor.
And it is my prayer and my hope, my desire, that they will do that. It has been a joy, Tom, and tell all the folks over there at the blood bank that they sent the right guy. And I hope when we call for you all to come back again, you'll come back just to share the information again. If you need us, Zion Fair, let's say, for example, it's not an event that we're sponsoring. I want to say this on the air as well as to you directly. We have a full gymnasium. You can say, listen, we need a place to host. We will be available to help you out in that area too, at no charge, because what we pride ourselves on is being here for the community. So if you need a spot to be able to have a donor location, we want to be that place, all right?
That's awesome.
Thank you so very much, Tom. And listen, I want you to be blessed, and I hope that your family is as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
We'll
Pastor.
be right back.
ฮัลโหลครับ
กินข้าวยังลูก
กินแล้วครับ พ่อครับ กว่าผมจะหนัก45 กิโลแม่จะรอผมไหวไหมครับ
And we're back. What a great opportunity. What a great opportunity for Tony to be with us today. He gave us some great information, eased the mind, allowed us to realize that, you know what, giving blood is something that we should do out of our civic obligation to each other. Sometimes we have to give to those who can't give back to us. Today it's somebody else. Tomorrow it might be you. Why don't you take time today to go to the website that he has given to us, and why don't you decide, I'm going to donate some blood. They have good cookies and they have good snacks and juice. Not that that's the reason why you would do it, but I wanted to throw that in there because I enjoyed the tape, the 15 minutes, even though he said 15 minutes, I think I was there about 30. But it is so important that you take serious our obligation to each other. When God created man, he made sure that we were created for community. He didn't create man and leave it. He allowed it to be a female right thereafter. And the whole purpose of me saying that is we are a community. We must help each other. So I hope and trust that you enjoyed our show today. I enjoyed it. I have gotten more information and I'm excited. So again, Tony did a phenomenal job, and I'm looking forward to talking to him again and again and again. Until the next time we get together, God bless you real good.